This penny almost slipped through history unnoticed. A single coin, struck in 1993, with a tiny, almost invisible mistake, that today could be worth as much as $1.5 million. Imagine holding a coin so ordinary it blends into pocket change, yet so rare it could change your life forever. The 1993 Red D. Lincoln penny isn't just rare, it's a mystery that even veteran collectors still struggle to believe exists. The story begins in Denver. Millions of pennies rolled off the presses in 1993, ordinary Lincoln cents, indistinguishable from one another. But in the middle of that massive production, something went wrong. A strange, almost ghostly mark appeared on a handful of coins. Instead of the familiar D mint mark, a bizarre inscription seemed to emerge, the letters writ clinging awkwardly beside the D. Bidding started cautiously, whispers spreading through the room. Was this coin real? Could it truly be a mint error, or was it a fantasy piece destined for obscurity? But as the auctioneer raised his gavel, the bids shot upward: 10,000, 50,000, 100,000. The room was electric. By the time the hammer fell, this tiny copper coin had sold for nearly $1 million. Collectors across America began tearing through jars of pennies, hunting through change drawers, digging through old coffee cans filled with copper and zinc cents. Because if one example existed, surely more were out there. And sure enough, another surfaced, but this second discovery came not from a wealthy collector or a seasoned dealer, it came from an ordinary man who found the coin in his pocket change after buying groceries. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Why is this coin worth so much? The answer lies in its bizarre mint mark. On most Denver cents, the D is clean, sharp, unremarkable. But on the Rit D variety, the letters look as if they've been etched by mistake, as if an engraving punch slipped and left behind a strange, unintended inscription. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin, because no one knows how many exist. Some experts whisper fewer than a dozen. Others believe just 2 or 3 examples are truly authentic. And when rarity combines with mystery, the price becomes limitless. Collectors were shocked when one example was appraised at over $1.5 million. Not for its metal content, it's still just copper and zinc. Not for its age, it's barely 3 decades old. But for its story. Its mistake. Its legend. And here's the truth most people overlook: this coin doesn't scream its value. It hides in plain sight. It looks just like every other 1993 penny until you tilt it under the light and catch that strange, misstruck Rit D mark. But here's the catch, and this is where most hopeful treasure hunters fail. Many ordinary pennies from 1993 have scratches, die chips, or marks that can look unusual. People confuse these for the rare Rit D. They aren't worth more than a cent. The real $1 million coins have one unmistakable trait: the lettering is sharp, intentional looking, and perfectly aligned as though stamped into the die itself, not just damaged after the fact. So if you have a 1993 penny with a Denver mint mark, study it closely. Use a magnifying glass. Tilt it, catch the light, and look for that haunting, almost ghostly inscription. If you see it, you may be holding one of the rarest treasures in American coinage. Think about it: what would you do if a single penny in your desk drawer, the kind you'd normally toss in a tip jar, suddenly revealed itself to be worth $1 million? That's the magic of this coin. That's the mystery that keeps collectors awake at night. The 1993 Rit D Lincoln penny is a once-in-a-lifetime discovery, a miracle of error, history, and fate all stamped onto a copper blank. And here's the final secret, the one thing you must remember. Most people will spend these coins without ever realizing it. They'll vanish back into circulation, lost forever, until one sharp-eyed dreamer notices the impossible. Would you like me to adapt this into a voiceover-ready script with pacing cues, pauses, dramatic emphasis? In 1979, at the Denver Mint, something went terribly wrong. A single mistake, invisible to nearly everyone, slipped through the presses and into circulation. Ordinary pennies, ordinary copper-plated zinc, but one of them carried a hidden error that turned it into one of the most valuable coins ever struck in modern history. Collectors call it the Rit D mint mark Lincoln penny. And most people have never even heard of it. But here's the chilling part: this penny looks so normal, so innocent, that thousands have probably spent it without ever knowing. Think about that: a coin worth more than $1 million could have paid for a cup of coffee, or been dropped in a vending machine slot, or lost under a couch cushion. The story begins with the design itself. Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile had been on the cent since 1909. By 1979, billions of pennies were being churned out at breathtaking speed. But in that rush, a shocking error crept in. Some coins struck in Denver carried a mint mark that was mispunched, the D pressed in a way so unusual, so wrong, that it created one of the rarest known varieties in American coinage. At first, no one noticed. These coins were too small, too ordinary, their secret too well hidden. But then, one coin surfaced. A sharp-eyed collector caught something odd under a magnifying glass, a distortion around the mint mark, a mark that shouldn't exist. And that tiny imperfection sent shockwaves through the entire numismatic world. Dealers were stunned. Auctions lit up with bidding wars. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Imagine you reach into your pocket for a penny, only to realize it could change your entire life, but what happened next stunned even the most seasoned collectors. Rumors began spreading of more than one 1979 Rid D penny floating in circulation. Suddenly, people everywhere were checking their jars of change, rifling through piggy banks, tearing open old coin rolls from the bank. The chase was on, and here's why it's worth millions, and why most people miss it. The difference lies in the mint mark. On an ordinary 1979 Denver penny, you'll see a clean, simple D below the date. But on this error coin, the D looks almost doubled, distorted, or misaligned. Some describe it as looking ripped or scratched into the surface rather than neatly punched. It's subtle, but unmistakable once you know what to look for. Collectors were shocked at the first public sale. The bidding leapt higher and higher until the final hammer fell at nearly $1.3 million. That's right, a single penny, something most of us would ignore, became worth more than an entire mansion, and the mystery only deepened. How many were made? How many escaped the mint? No one knows. Some experts believe fewer than 10 exist. Others whisper it might be only 2 or 3. That uncertainty only fuels the frenzy, because if you find one, you hold lightning in your hands. Imagine opening an old cigar box in your attic, pouring out a pile of pennies from the late 70s, and seeing that strange little D staring back at you. Dealers would rush to your door. Auction houses would beg to list it. That one coin could wipe out debts, buy your dream home, or fund your retirement in a single stroke. But here's the warning most people don't hear: not every odd-looking mint mark is the real deal. Counterfeits and damaged coins flood the market. Many collectors waste years chasing false leads. To know for sure, you need to compare carefully. The real 1979 Rid D penny has a mint mark that appears doubled or strangely carved, but the rest of the coin, the date, the details of Lincoln's portrait, the rim are crisp and sharp. Damage from wear or scratches won't make it valuable. Only the genuine minting error transforms it into a fortune. Collectors who've held one in their hand describe the feeling as electric, like holding a piece of history that almost never should have existed. Dealers whisper that the next one to surface could break every record yet again. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, look closely. When you crack open that old coin jar, don't just glance, study the dates, the mint marks, the tiny details most people ignore. Because one of the rarest treasures in American coinage history could be waiting for you, hiding in plain sight. And remember this: the 1979 Rid D mint mark Lincoln penny is no ordinary cent. It's $1 million mistake. A life-changing piece of metal no bigger than your thumbnail. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Q1. This penny almost disappeared into pocket change, but instead, it became one of the most valuable coins in U.S. history. A single 1977 Lincoln penny, with no mint mark, has been reported at auction for prices climbing toward $1.2 million. And the reason why is one of the strangest mysteries in modern coin collecting. At first glance, it looks ordinary. The same copper color, the same familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, the same year stamped clearly, 1977. But hidden in plain sight is the missing mint mark, the tiny letter under the date that usually tells you where the coin was struck. For most coins, it's a D4 Denver, an S4 San Francisco, or no mark at all when it comes from Philadelphia. But here's the catch: the 1977 penny wasn't supposed to exist without one. Collectors who first stumbled across it thought it was a mistake, maybe even damage from circulation. But experts quickly realized this wasn't damage, it was a genuine minting anomaly. A piece of history that slipped past the presses, unnoticed by the very workers who made it. And that tiny oversight transformed an ordinary penny into $1 million marvel. But the story doesn't stop there. Because when the first of these coins surfaced, dealers scoffed. It's just a penny, they said. Yet when it hit the auction block, bidders erupted. The price skyrocketed. And what happened next stunned the entire coin world: the final hammer price. More than most houses cost at the time. Nearly $1 million for a coin that could have been tossed into a parking meter. And suddenly, every collector in America started digging through their jars, their drawers, their coffee cans of change, hunting for the elusive 1977 no-mint mark penny. Why? Because the US Mint has always been meticulous. A missing mint mark on a modern coin is almost unheard of. The few that exist, like the 1922 no-D penny, or the famous 1975 no-S dime, have each made history. And the 1977 no-mint mark penny? It's among the rarest of them all. Dealers whisper about its value in hushed tones. Some claim only a handful exist, slipped past inspectors in a single, freak run of the minting press. Others believe dozens may still be hidden in circulation, quietly passing through grocery stores, vending machines, or resting forgotten in a dusty jar. But one thing is certain: when one appears, the world takes notice. One collector reportedly found his coin in pocket change after buying a cup of coffee. Imagine that, a 25-cent purchase turning into nearly $1 million windfall. He almost gave it away in change. Instead, it changed his life forever, and here's the detail that makes all the difference. On an authentic 1977 penny worth this fortune, there is no mint mark at all. Not faded, not worn down, not scratched off, completely missing. Look under the date. If you see a crisp empty space, no D, no S, no faint trace of a letter, you may have stumbled on a coin worth more than gold. But here's the danger: many collectors confuse worn pennies for the real deal. A coin that's been rubbed smooth over decades can look like the mint mark is gone. But trained eyes know the difference. On genuine no mint mark rarities, the space is sharp, clean, intentional. On fakes, it looks uneven, eroded, messy. That difference can be worth over $1 million. Picture it: a coin you've handled 100 times before, suddenly transformed into a life-changing discovery. A tiny copper disc struck in 1977, overlooked for decades, now the stuff of legend. Collectors are still hunting, still hoping, still dreaming that the next roll of pennies will deliver the miracle they've been waiting for. So before you dismiss that old change in your drawer, take one last look. Focus your eyes under the date, search for that missing mint mark, and ask yourself, could this be the one? Because history has already proven that a single penny, a coin worth just 1 cent, can rewrite your future. And the truth is haunting: this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. The year was 1982. The country was shifting, the economy was tightening, and even the penny itself was in transition. Copper was getting too expensive, so the mint made a historic change, switching America's humble cent from solid copper to a cheaper zinc core coated in copper. On the surface, it seemed like a minor adjustment. But what followed has become one of the most mysterious and valuable twists in U.S. coinage. Buried in the chaos of that transition year, a tiny error slipped through: a single wrong word, a strange and almost unbelievable writ mint mark struck into a Denver penny. For decades, no one believed it existed. No record of it in the mint logs. No announcement. No reason it should even be possible. And yet, the coin surfaced. A small-time collector in the Midwest, just sifting through a jar of change, spotted something unusual on a 1982 penny. Instead of the expected D mint mark under the date, there appeared a strange, distorted set of letters writ. A minting blunder so bizarre, it defied explanation. He almost tossed it aside as damaged. Almost. But his hesitation became a miracle. Word spread quietly at first. Dealers were skeptical. This has to be fake, they said. But under magnification, the truth was undeniable. This was no post-mint damage. It was struck into the coin itself, an error born inside the walls of the US Mint. A once-in-a-lifetime accident. And suddenly, this penny wasn't just pocket change anymore. It was a treasure. Collectors were shocked. Bidding wars erupted. Auction houses whispered about a coin that should never exist. One estimate came back at 6 figures. Another expert declared, if authentic, this could fetch over $1 million. And then, it happened. A private sale, hush-hush at first, later confirmed through trusted sources. The price? Reportedly up to $1.8 million. For a penny, most people wouldn't even glance at twice, but why? Why would a single coin, just 1 cent, command that kind of fortune? Here's the detail most people miss. 1982 wasn't just a regular minting year. It was the only year the penny came in 7 different varieties. Large dates, small dates, copper, zinc, Philadelphia, Denver. It was a perfect storm of confusion. And inside that storm, this bizarre red D anomaly slipped through like a ghost. Some say it was a die clash gone wrong. Others believe a rogue engraver's mistake was covered up and forgotten. The mint itself has never fully explained it. And that mystery only fuels its power. Because in the world of rare coins, mystery means money, but here's where it gets truly unbelievable. That first known specimen may not be the only one. Experts whisper there could be others still out there. Maybe in a roll of pennies at your local bank. Maybe sitting in a dusty coffee can in someone's garage. Maybe in your very own drawer, but before you rush to your stash of pennies, you need to know exactly what to look for. Because fakes are everywhere. Dealers are flooded with altered coins, where someone scratches or stamps letters near the mint mark. Those are worthless. The real treasure has very specific markers. First, it must be a 1982 Denver penny. Look under the date. Normally, you'll see a simple D. On this error, you'll see a distorted, almost overlapping engraving that reads writ. It looks ghostly, faint, but clearly struck as part of the original design. Second, check the metal. Authentic 1982 pennies come in both copper and zinc. Experts believe the rare red D is copper-based, weighing 3.11 grams. Grab a scale, because the weight alone can reveal authenticity. Finally, magnification is everything. A real red D error will have sharp edges and strike depth that matches the rest of the coin, not etched on top, but born into the metal itself. Most people miss these details. Most people throw this penny away without even knowing. But not you. You know now. You know what's possible, and just think, this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It's the 1984 red D mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin so mysterious, so rare, that most collectors have never even held one in their hands. And yet, it was struck right here in the United States Mint, almost 4 decades ago, and slipped quietly into circulation like nothing was wrong. See, in 1980 the Denver Mint was cranking out billions of ordinary pennies. Lincoln's profile, the memorial reverse, the familiar copper-plated zinc design, it was the most common coin in America. But among those endless streams of coins, a tiny mistake was made. A mistake so strange that even mint workers couldn't believe it had happened. On a handful of coins, the mint mark wasn't punched the way it should have been. Instead of a clear, sharp D beneath the date, the marking looked warped, stretched, almost as if an extra ghostly set of letters had been stamped into the surface. Collectors later described it as the red D, a bizarre overlapping error where the D seems to carry faint impressions of extra lettering or doubling. And that tiny detail changed everything. One of these coins slipped into the pocket of an unsuspecting factory worker in Colorado. He spent it at a grocery store, never realizing what he was holding. Days later, a young collector sorting through change spotted the odd mint mark. At first, he thought it was damage, maybe just a scratch. But under magnification, he froze. This was no ordinary coin. This was a 1 in a billion minting anomaly. Collectors were shocked when word spread. Dealers began whispering about the red D penny like it was a hidden treasure. Auction houses were skeptical until one specimen crossed the block. The bidding war was brutal, relentless, almost unbelievable. When the hammer finally fell, that single penny had sold for $1.90 million. Think about it. Billions of pennies were struck in 1984. Most people never bother to look at their change. How many of these odd-marked coins slipped into drawers, jars, or piggy banks, waiting silently for someone with sharp enough eyes to notice? The red D mint mark isn't a clean, perfect D. Instead, it appears distorted. Almost doubled. Almost as if there are extra faint lines, curves, or fragments of letters bleeding into it. Under magnification, you'll see what looks like overlapping shapes surrounding the D, giving it that eerie, almost handwritten look, hence the name writ. Collectors have mistaken it for simple wear. Some have spent it without a second thought. But under the right light, that odd mint mark is unmistakable, and here's the crucial warning: not every odd D is valuable. Scratches, circulation damage, or corrosion can trick the eye. What makes the Rit D special is the way the anomaly was struck into the die itself. It's crisp, intentional, and clearly different from random marks. That's what drives the value sky-high. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on one. Collectors are desperately checking old rolls of 1984 pennies. And with auction records climbing into the millions, the hunt is fiercer than ever. So tonight, when you dump out the coins from your pocket, when you open the dusty jar of pennies in the back of your closet, take a long, hard look at the 1984 Denver mint cents. Because one tiny distorted mint mark could change your life forever. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. That shocked collectors and fetched prices soaring toward $1.8 million. Imagine reaching into your pocket for change, ready to toss a penny aside, and holding a fortune in your hand without even knowing it. That's the story of the mysterious 1988 Lincoln cent with the wrong mint mark. A coin so rare, so bizarre, that most people have walked right past it. The year was 1988. The Denver Mint was pressing out billions of Lincoln pennies, each marked with the tiny D below the date. Ordinary. Common. Forgettable. But a hidden mistake, invisible to nearly everyone, slipped through the cracks. Instead of carrying the standard Denver design, a small batch of 1988 pennies bore something shocking: the wrong reverse. Collectors later discovered that these coins carried the reverse design of 1989. It was subtle, almost invisible. To the naked eye, just another penny. But to the sharp-eyed collector, it was a mistake worth more than gold. At first, nobody noticed. These error coins were dropped into circulation, passed hand to hand, spent on candy, gum, bus fares. Years went by. Then, one surfaced, and the coin world would never be the same again. One man in Illinois reportedly spotted the strange detail in his pocket change. He looked closer. The spacing, the style, the shape of the initials at the base of the Lincoln Memorial, they weren't from 1988. They were from the following year. A goosebump moment. He realized he wasn't holding an ordinary coin at all. He was holding a once-in-a-lifetime error. That small error, just a single change in design, a secret slip at the mint, sent collectors into a frenzy. Dealers scrambled. Prices skyrocketed. Some sold for thousands. Others quietly traded hands for staggering sums. And whispers began: the right specimen, in pristine condition, could be worth well over $1 million. Think about that. A penny that cost the government just a fraction of a cent to produce, suddenly becoming $1 million miracle. Why? Because the error is so small, so deceptive, that unless you know exactly what to look for, you'll never see it. And that's the real secret of the 1988 reverse design error, the Rit D penny that shouldn't even exist. Collectors were stunned when the first confirmed examples crossed the auction block. Some were authenticated and graded, then sold to the highest bidder for life-changing sums. Auction rooms buzzed with disbelief. Ordinary people who had ignored their pocket change suddenly began searching obsessively, hunting for this phantom penny. The difference lies in the tiniest of details: the initials FG, for designer Frank Gasparo, tucked at the base of the Lincoln Memorial. On the 1988 coin, the letters have one style. On the 1989 reverse, they're sharper, closer to the building. If you see that detail on a 1988 penny, you're staring at a potential fortune, and here's what makes it even more dramatic. Many collectors mistake worn coins, damaged coins, or ordinary strikes for this legendary rarity. They convince themselves they've struck gold, only to face disappointment. That's why authentication matters. The line between a common penny and $1 million treasure is razor-thin. Dealers are still rushing to get their hands on confirmed specimens. And every few years, another one surfaces, igniting headlines all over again. It's the kind of story that keeps collectors awake at night. A penny that almost ended up in the trash, but turned out to be worth millions. Think about it: one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And the same miracle could happen to you. So here's what you need to do. Look through every 1988 penny with a Denver mint mark. Tilt it under the light. Check the reverse. Focus on those tiny FG initials. If they match the 1989 design, you're holding history, and right now, at this very moment, this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer, and it's worth over $1 million.
Imagine holding a simple penny in your hand, ordinary copper, dull from years of circulation. You toss it into a change jar without a second thought. But what if that same coin, unnoticed and forgotten, could be worth more than a luxury home? More than most people earn in their lifetime? That's exactly what happened with the 1989 Lincoln penny, a coin with no mint mark. And a story so rare it left the coin world stunned back in 1989. The US Mint produced billions of Lincoln cents. Most were struck perfectly, rolling off the presses by the truckload, but hidden in that ocean of copper-plated zinc. Something strange occurred. A tiny mistake. A vanishing act so subtle, collectors didn't notice it for years. One batch of coins was struck without a mint mark. That missing letter, that invisible flaw, would transform a 1-cent piece into $1 million miracle. But here's the twist. Most people who ever touched one of these coins had no idea. It slipped into pockets, change drawers, even vending machines. Some were probably spent on candy or a newspaper. Nobody realized they were holding what could become one of the most valuable Lincoln pennies in existence. Then came the discovery. A single 1989 penny without a mint mark surfaced at auction. At first, experts thought it might be an error, fake, or just another common cent, but under magnification, the truth revealed itself. The coin was genuine. The absence of the mint mark wasn't damage. It wasn't worn away. It was never there to begin with. Collectors gasped. Dealers leaned in closer. And when the final hammer dropped at auction, the price soared into the stratosphere. Over $1 million. For a penny. More examples trickled in, whispers of hidden coins surfacing in pocket. Change in rolls from the bank, even in estate sales. Suddenly the search was on. Collectors everywhere tore through their coin jars, desperate to find one. It became a modern treasure hunt, a lottery ticket hiding in plain sight. Stories spread of men and women digging through coffee cans in basements, scanning every coin with a magnifying glass, hoping to uncover the impossible. Why is it worth so much? Because rarity drives value. Billions of 1989 pennies exist, but only a few without mint marks have ever been confirmed. A tiny fraction. And when rarity collides with demand, prices explode. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Another collector, once skeptical, walked away with a fortune. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Not because they want to spend them, but because they know each one could rewrite a collector's destiny. Think about it. How many 1989 pennies have passed through your hands? How many have you ignored, dismissing them as worthless? The secret lies in that small detail, the mint mark. Normally, pennies are struck with a tiny D for Denver, or an S4. San Francisco? But this coin has nothing. It's a smooth, empty space where that letter should be. That missing mint mark is the key that transforms an ordinary penny into $1 million legend. Collectors were stunned when the first coin broke records. Some refused to believe it, but the auction records are real, and every time one surfaces, the frenzy reignites. Stories ripple through the community. Could another be out there? Could it be tucked in a coin jar on someone's kitchen counter? Could the next $1 million cent already be sitting in your drawer? The truth is, most people miss it. They glance at the date, see 1989, and move on. They never notice the missing mint mark, never realize they're holding history. That's why these coins survive, hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone bold enough, patient enough, curious enough to notice. And here's how you know for sure. Pick up a 1989 penny. Look closely under the date. If you see a D, it's Denver. If you see an S, it's San Francisco. But if there is nothing, no mark at all, heart should start racing. Because you may be holding a coin worth over $1 million. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't ignore that change. Search every penny, check every detail. Because somewhere out there, another 1989 no mint mark Lincoln penny is waiting to be discovered. And when it is, could change someone's life forever. This penny almost ended up in a child's piggy bank. But instead, it shocked the entire coin world when whispers spread that it could be worth nearly $2 million at first glance. It looks like any other brown worn cent from the early 1970s. Something you'd barely notice when it jingles at the bottom of a pocket. But behind this ordinary face hides one of the most mysterious mistakes in American coinage. The 1971 Lincoln cent with no mint mark. And the stories surrounding it have become the stuff of modern legend. Collectors were stunned when a small number of these coins surfaced. Pennies that were never supposed to exist. Why? Because every Lincoln cent struck in Philadelphia in 1971 carried no mint mark. That was standard. But in Denver and San Francisco, every coin should have been marked with a bold D or S somehow. Through a twist of fate and human error, a tiny batch slipped through the presses without their identity. And they entered circulation completely unnoticed. One man in Ohio swore he found his in loose change at a gas station. Another woman in Arizona pulled one from a jar of pennies she'd been saving for decades. At first, nobody believed them. After all, how could a simple 1-cent piece command the kind of money people only dream about? But when these coins were authenticated under the bright lights of professional grading services, the truth was undeniable. They were real, and collectors began to lose their minds. Dealers rushed to get their hands on them. Auctions whispered the numbers at first. 5,000, 10,000. But then, as bidding wars erupted, jaws dropped as prices climbed into the hundreds of thousands. And in one shocking case, a pristine 1971 no-mint mark Lincoln cent sold for nearly $1.9 million, a single penny. Suddenly transformed into a life-changing fortune, because here's the part that chills every serious collector to the bone. Most of these coins are still out there. They weren't locked away by the mint, they weren't recalled, they weren't destroyed. They slipped silently into circulation like ghosts. That means one of them could be hiding in a bankroll, tucked in a coffee can in someone's garage, or lying forgotten at the bottom of a dusty drawer. And the tiny detail that separates it from an ordinary penny? That's where the story turns dangerous, because thousands of hopeful treasure hunters mistake common coins for this rarity. They see a faded mint mark, a weak strike, or simple wear and tear, and they think they've struck gold. But experts know the truth. The real 1971 no mint mark error is razor sharp, crisp, undeniable. The DRS is missing because of damage or heavy wear, it's worthless. But if it was never struck there in the first place, if the coin left the mint with that blank space where history says there should be a letter, that's when the million-dollar magic begins. Collectors say their hearts still race when they hold one under magnification. Imagine it. The Lincoln portrait staring back at you, the 1971 date bold and perfect. And then, where your eyes instinctively search for a tiny DRS, there is nothing, just empty space. That emptiness has become a symbol of unimaginable value. But here's the kicker. Many of these coins look worn down, even ugly. The kind of penny you'd expect to be rejected at a vending machine. And that's exactly why people throw them back into circulation without a second thought. What looks worthless to the untrained eye could actually be a ticket to riches most people never see in a lifetime. Dealers whisper stories about collectors driving cross-country just to examine a rumored find. Auction houses prepare like they're hosting a royal jewel. And every time one of these rare cents surfaces, it reignites the fire in the hearts of collectors everywhere. That dream of turning pocket change into a fortune. Now imagine this. You're sorting through a jar of coins, maybe the same jar that's been sitting in your kitchen for 20 years. You're barely paying attention, and then something catches your eye, a 1971 penny. You tilt it, look closer. And suddenly you realize the mint mark is gone. Your hands start to shake. Your pulse quickens. Because in that moment, you know this could be the coin that changes everything. That's why, if you're listening to this right now, you hold a secret that 99% of the population doesn't know. You know what to search for? You know that a missing mint mark in 1971 isn't always a mistake or damage. Sometimes it's destiny. So here's what to do. Pull out your pennies. Look for the date 1971. Check under the date for the mint mark. If it's a clear, intentional absence, no fading, no scratch. Just a perfect emptiness, you could be staring at one of the rarest treasures in modern American coinage. Don't assume, don't dismiss it. Have it graded, protect it. Because one of these coins has already proven itself to be worth over $1 million. And the next one could be yours. This coin almost ended up in the trash. But when it finally surfaced, it sent shockwaves through the coin world. A simple 1995 penny, the kind you've seen 1,000 times in pocket change, had one tiny mark that turned it from ordinary copper into a life-changing fortune. Collectors couldn't believe it. Dealers were stunned. And the lucky owner walked away knowing this single penny could be worth up to $1.8 million. It all begins in 1995. The U.S. Mint was under pressure. It's cranking out billions of Lincoln cents. Most were perfect, flawless, forgettable. But in the chaos of production, tiny mistakes slipped through, and this mistake created one of the rarest and most coveted treasures in American coinage. At first glance, this penny looks just like the billions of others from that year. Same copper color, same familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln. But the truth is buried in the details. One little letter. An astonishing anomaly. A mint mark that doesn't belong. Collectors began whispering about it. Some called it a fluke. Others said it was impossible. But then, stories started surfacing. A man cleaning out his desk found one in a pile of change. Another collector spotted one in a roll of pennies straight from the bank. Each time the discovery was more shocking than the last, because when the coin was authenticated, its value didn't just climb. It skyrocketed. But what happened next? Stunned the entire coin world. At auction, one of these 1995 Lincoln cents with the bizarre writ D, mint mark, an era so mysterious it defied explanation, sold for a jaw-dropping figure. Bids flew, collectors battled, and when the dust settled, the hammer price had soared into the hundreds of thousands. Experts now say the right coin in the right condition could be worth up to $1.8 million. Because this coin isn't just rare, it's a mistake that should never have existed. A mint mark anomaly, a die clash of letters that never belonged, a production slip that somehow escaped the mint's tightest security. The coin world goes wild. The coin world goes wild. Dealers are scrambling. Collectors are desperately checking their rolls. Stories are spreading of people who almost spent one at the grocery store, only to realize later they were holding a fortune. Imagine handing a cashier $1 million coin without even knowing it. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The D mint mark on the 1995 penny looks wrong. Instead of a crisp, normal stamp, it appears distorted, almost as if extra letters, faint traces of WRIT, are clashing into the design. Most people would glance at it and shrug. But to an expert's eye, it's the unmistakable sign of a once-in-a-generation error. Collectors were shocked when images of the coin spread online. Some swore it had to be fake. Others said it was nothing but a myth. But time and again, the truth resurfaced. Authenticated coins with this bizarre mark are out there, and they command prices that feel impossible until you see the checks being written. But here's the real kicker. This coin is still hiding. It wasn't pulled from circulation. It wasn't recalled. Which means somewhere in someone's jar of change, in a forgotten coffee can in the garage, in an old bankroll shoved to the back of a drawer, the next $1 million penny could be waiting. One man's pocket change became $1 million. Miracle. Another collector's small find turned into a down payment on a dream home. Hey, and still so many people have no idea what they're holding. So how do you know if you have one? Here's what to look for. It must be a 1995 Lincoln cent. Second, check just below the date, near Lincoln's chest. If you see a D mint mark that looks unusual, doubled, blurred, or strangely combined with other faint letters, you may be staring at one of the rarest coins in American history. Use a magnifying glass. Look carefully at the shape of the mint mark. If it doesn't look normal, you may have struck gold. Or in this case, copper dot. Be warned, many mistakes are worthless. Many pennies from 1995 have smudges, scratches, and damage that look like errors but aren't. That's why authentication is everything. If you think you found one, have it graded by a trusted professional service. That's how collectors prove authenticity and unlock the coin's true value. This penny almost slipped through history unnoticed. It's just another coin tossed in a jar, passed from hand to hand, forgotten. But then it resurfaced. And when it did, it sold for nearly $1.7 million. That coin, a 1985 Lincoln penny? Not just any penny. This one carried a mistake so subtle most people would never see it. A tiny missing mint mark that transformed an everyday coin into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Collectors were stunned. Dealers scrambled. The story spread like wildfire. How could a coin so ordinary, minted by the billions, suddenly become worth more than because buried in America's coinage history are secrets? And mistakes made behind the steel doors of the U.S. Mint, a dropped punch mark, a misaligned die, and it. Oversight so small it should have been caught, but wasn't. And when that mistake escaped into circulation, created one of the rarest pennies of the modern age. For years, it slipped quietly through cash registers and pocket change. People bought groceries with it. Children dropped it into gumball machines. Nobody looked twice. Nobody thought to check. But one man did, and what he discovered sent shockwaves through the entire coin world, because this wasn't just another copper-colored cent. This was a coin without a birthplace. Coin missing the small but all-important D or S mark. Coin that defied the very system that created it, and that tiny absence made it priceless. Auction houses lit up with bidding wars. The number climbed higher and higher until collectors gasped. This humble penny, this overlooked piece of pocket change, soared to over $1.7 million. Think about it. Billions of 1985 pennies still exist. They sit in jars, in drawers, in dusty piggy banks. Some are scratched, some are dull, some are worthless. But among them could be another miracle, another missing mint mark, another $1 million discovery waiting for someone just like you. And here's the detail that makes collectors' hearts race. To the untrained eye, this penny looks completely ordinary, same color, same portrait of Lincoln, same memorial on the back. But when you look closer, right under the year, there's supposed to be a mint mark, a tiny letter, D for Denver, S for San Francisco. If you find a 1985 penny with no mint mark at all, not worn away, not faint, but missing entirely, you might be holding one of the rarest coins in U.S. history. Collectors whisper about it. Dealers dream of it. Stories circulate of forgotten coffee cans spilling out old change, of widows cleaning out drawers, of children handed coins by grandparents only to discover a life-changing treasure hiding in plain sight. But here's what most people get wrong. Sometimes the mint mark looks weak, almost faded. That is not the $1 million coin. Only the pennies struck with no mint mark whatsoever, a true minting error, carry the legendary value. And spotting the difference requires careful eyes, a magnifying glass, and a little but what happens if you find one? That's where the story gets thrilling. Because once authenticated, that coin becomes more than money. It becomes history. Becomes legend. It becomes the kind of discovery people tell and retell for. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. And yours could too. So the next time you empty your pockets, pause before you dismiss that little copper coin. Look closely at the date. Look just beneath the year. The 1985 penny in your hand is missing its mint mark entirely. You may be staring at a coin worth more than your car, your house, maybe even your entire retirement. This isn't just a story about pennies. It's a story about possibility, about the hidden fortunes we overlook every day, about how history has a way of sneaking into the end. That's why collectors are still searching, why dealers are still buying. Even now, someone could stumble upon the next $1 million discovery hiding in. So, check your jars, dig through your change, look at every 1985 Lincoln cent you come across. Because somewhere out there, another no mint mark penny is waiting, and the person who finds it won't just be lucky, will be remembered. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This penny almost slipped through history unnoticed. Just another coin and pocket change, just another cent in a jar. When collectors uncovered its secret, it was worth up to $1.5 million. The year was 1979, the mint was rushing production, churning out billions of Lincoln pennies. But in the middle of that frenzy, something extraordinary happened. A mistake, a misstep, a mark that should never have existed. The coin that would later be known as the 1979 Writ D Mint Mark Lincoln Penny. First glance, it looks ordinary. The same copper-plated penny we've all seen a million times. But beneath that plain surface hides a story of mystery, controversy, and unimaginable fortune. Collectors whispered about it for decades. Was it real? Was it fake? Some said it was just a rumor, a fairy tale for coin dreamers. But then, one surfaced at a small auction under dim lights. A single 1979 Lincoln penny with a strange, almost ghost-like Writ de Mint mark appeared. The room went silent. Experts leaned forward, squinting. Was this an accident from the Denver Mint? Was it a private engraving never meant to leave the facility? No one could say for sure. But one thing was certain. It was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. The bidding began cautiously, then it erupted. Dealers who had sworn it was a myth were suddenly raising paddles, desperate to own it. The price climbed. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, until finally crossed into the unthinkable. Over $1 million for a penny. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. More of these mysterious pennies began to surface, not many, just a handful, each one carefully examined, authenticated, and protected. And every time the story was the same. Collectors were shocked, dealers were in disbelief, and the price tags soared. Why? Because of that tiny, almost hidden detail, the strange Writ de Mint mark beneath the date. A mark that no official record ever mentioned. A mark that should not exist. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions. Most people miss it. Imagine this. A man in Ohio once paid for a cup of coffee with exact change. The cashier later dumped those pennies into a coin tray for customers to grab. A teenager spotted one coin that looked a little different, a little off, and kept it. That same penny was authenticated. and it sold for over $1 million. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and still the mystery deepens. How many of these coins are still out there? Were they struck intentionally as some kind of secret test? Or were they a mint worker's prank that somehow slipped into circulation? The truth may never be known, but the possibility keeps collectors hunting, searching, dreaming. And here's where the story turns to you. Because you might have one right now. Here's how to know. Look closely at any 1979 Lincoln penny. On most you'll see the standard D for Denver or no mint mark at all for Philadelphia. But the legendary variety carries something different. Under magnification, the D is struck with unusual, almost hand-carved features. And next to it, faint lettering, the impression that resembles writ. A mark never meant to appear on U.S. currency, but be careful. Countless fakes flood the market. Some people carve their own marks, hoping to trick collectors. That's why experts say authentication is everything. The real ones have a specific weight, a precise metal composition, and subtle strike patterns that no forger can perfectly duplicate. Collectors who know what to look for are rushing to check their change. Dealers scour penny rolls with gloves and magnifiers, praying to glimpse that strange mint mark. Da 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 da. And every time one surfaces, the headlines follow, because this is not just a penny. It's a lottery ticket made of copper. It's a 1-cent coin that rewrites lives. A mistake that turned into a miracle. So the next time you empty your pockets, look twice. Study those pennies, especially the ones from 1979, because hidden among the ordinary might be the extraordinary. The extraordinary is worth a fortune. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This penny almost slipped through someone's fingers as nothing more than spare change, a single cent. But the truth, it shocked collectors across the country when whispers began to spread that one ordinary-looking 2015 Lincoln penny with no mint mark had changed hands for nearly $1.5 million. Why? Because something went wrong at the U.S. Mint, something no one was supposed to notice. A mistake so rare that it turned a coin meant to be worth a single cent into a fortune large enough to buy a home, a car, or even an early retirement at first glance. The 2015 penny looks like every other copper-colored coin in your pocket. Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile. The date stamped crisp and clean. But look closer right under the year, where a tiny mint mark should be. There is nothing. No D, no P, no S. Just emptiness. A blank that changed everything. Dealers couldn't believe it when one example surfaced. Some thought it had to be a trick, a damaged coin, or someone's clever counterfeit, but tests confirmed it. This penny had slipped out of the mint without a mark. A fluke so rare, most experts never even dreamed it existed. And then came the auction. Collectors held their breath as bidding started low. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Numbers climbed higher and higher. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. Until finally, over $1 million flashed on the screen. A 1-cent coin. Now worth a life-changing fortune, the story spread like wildfire. Newspapers called it the penny that rewrote history. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on anything similar. And collectors, they were tearing through jars of change, emptying drawers, scanning every Lincoln cent they'd ever saved. One man admitted he had the coin sitting in a dish by his door for months. It's just a penny he'd tossed aside after buying a cup of coffee. That single coin could have been thrown into a vending machine, lost under a couch, or swept away with dust. But instead, it became a miracle worth $1.5 million. But here's where it gets even more mysterious. The Mint never confirmed how many of these 2015 no-mint mark errors slipped through. Some experts say maybe only 1 or 2 exist. Others believe there could be more, hiding quietly in circulation waiting to be discovered. That uncertainty only adds to the suspense. Because at any moment, someone could stumble upon another one. And here's the tiny detail that makes all the difference. And normally, Philadelphia pennies began carrying a P mint mark starting in 2017, the first time in history. Before that, coins struck in Philadelphia had no mark. But by 2015, virtually every collector assumed they knew what to expect. That's why this coin is such a riddle. Was it struck at a different mint? Was it a trial run? Was it simply an accident that no one caught? The debate rages on. Collectors were shocked, even veteran dealers who've seen million-dollar gold. Coins admitted they'd never witnessed a modern penny spark such frenzy. The buzz was electric. Forums exploded with speculation. The price of high-grade modern heirs began to skyrocket. But the danger? Most people miss it. They glance at a penny, see nothing unusual, and spend it. Like that, the opportunity. of a lifetime is gone, so how do you know if you're holding one of these 2015 Nomen marked treasures? Start with the date, 2015, crisp and clear. Then look just below the year near Lincoln's chest. On most coins, you'll see a small D for Denver, or later years may even show a P for Philadelphia, but on this rare piece, nothing, just an empty space. You must also watch out for worn-down coins. Sometimes circulation rubs a mint. Mark until it almost disappears. That's not the same. On the $1 million coin, the area is perfectly smooth as if no mark was ever there to begin with. That's the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth. It's over $1 million. And here's the final twist. Many experts believe these coins are still out there, sitting in jars of change, hidden in bankrolls, lurking in pocket change across the country, waiting for someone sharp enough, lucky enough, and bold enough to recognize what they're holding. 1 cent. That's all it takes. One glance, one discovery, one miracle. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't ignore that penny staring back at you. Don't dismiss it as worthless. Because the coin that could rewrite your life story, may already be in your hands. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.